Good afternoon, students. My name is Yuna Cario, and I'm your tutor for the subject Learner Development and Learning for the students doing DPP and DJP. That is Learner Development and Learning, DPP, LDL21, and Learner Development and Learning for the DJP students doing DJP, LDL21 students. Okay. Let's look at what will be in our paper for the August exams. The paper is out of 120 marks. It will be 2 hours and 30 minutes long. It will have 5 questions, and then you are required to answer all the questions. And I repeat again, you are going to have 5 questions in this question paper, and you are going to answer all the questions. So there is no selection of some of the questions. You are answering all the questions. The study guide that you need for you to prepare for this exam, you need your Learner Development and Learning Study Guide. That is for the DPPE and DJPE students. Okay, the way I set these exams, I set questions from each unit that I included in this exam. For example, if I talk about Unit 1, it means that all the questions of question 1 are from Unit 1. Let's go ahead and now look in Unit 1. What will be in Unit 1 and what are the questions that you can prepare for Unit 1. Unit 1, as we know, it talks about the stages of childhood development before the pre-primary stage. That is our Unit 1. And what are the questions that I have prepared for from this unit? You will have questions that will ask you to talk about the factors that may lead to the success of children's socialization. You will need to talk about the meaning of children's social development. You will also have to discuss parental stress and how it affects a child's social development. Okay, so let's go back to the first point. Factors that may lead to the success of a child's socialization. In Unit 1, you have a topic of socialization. So if you go through that topic, socialization, please try to understand what is meant by socialization. And as you are studying the meaning of socialization, look at the factors that may lead to the success of children's socialization. What are those factors? These are factors such as the security of attachment, the mutual responsiveness of parent and the child or the children, the socio-economic and the cultural factors that may affect the children's socialization. These are the factors that you need to look at. And then we talk about the meaning of children's social development. What is meant when we talk about children's social development? Social development, as we know, it refers to a child's ability to make and maintain relationships. If a child is able to make and maintain such relationships, then we can say that such a child is socially developed. So you have to discuss that meaning. If you look, this question will be out of 5 marks. So obviously it will not be enough for you just to mention that it refers to a child's ability to make and maintain relationship. You need to go on and discuss other meanings of a child's social development. Things like the child cooperates with others during early childhood and begins to develop conflict resolution skills. The child enjoys the attention and may show off while still showing empathy for others. When a child is at a stage whereby they are able to show empathy for other children, then we can say they are socially developed. You have to talk about things like the young child enjoys a group games and activities with other children, and they begin to understand the concept of playing fairly. They can also tell the difference between fantasy and reality, but they enjoy imaginative play with friends. Such are the things that you need to discuss, or topics, points. Let me put points that you need to discuss under the meaning of a child's social development. It's worth 5 marks. In each question that you answer, please always look at the marks allocated per question. It will kind of lead you into how long your answer should be. And then we have the last question in question 1. which would be 1.3, is about parental stress and how it affects a child's social development. What you need to discuss here basically is talk about how a parent's stressful situations can affect their own children's social development. For example, parental conflict, stressful situations, issues like a parent who's having a chronic illness. How does this affect children's way how does it affect the way in which a child develops socially? Discuss all these things. Discuss how their parents effectively resolve conflict. For example, often how do the parents resolve their own conflict issues in their own homes, and at the end of the day, and how does this conflict resolution skills lead to the way a child will develop? Okay, do kids face stressful situations because they are living with parents that are stressed, that are having conflict? So discuss all those points. And how does it eventually lead to the children's own stress levels if their own parents are going through stressful situations? Okay, this is what you need. It's not really a long question. This one, I think it will also be out of 5 marks. So the questions that you have in question 1, they are all worth 5 marks, if I'm not mistaken. But at the end of the day, this question will consist of about 13 marks. I think the first question, which is about the factors, is 3 marks. The meaning of children's social development is 5 marks, and parental stress and how it affects a child's social development is also 5 marks. So at the end of the day, the whole question 1 will be out of 13 marks. Then we move on to question 2. Question 2 also comes, like I said earlier, each question comes from a specific unit. Question 2 is from unit 2, and unit 2 is about the theories, the features, and the factors of pre-primary developmental domains. Under this unit, I've asked you questions on macronutrients and micronutrients and their functions in a diet. What are macronutrients and what are micronutrients? There's a difference. And what are their functions in a diet? Please discuss all these things. Discuss what are the macronutrients. For example, macronutrients, we know these are things like carbohydrates, your fats, and your protein, and how they provide the body with calories, and what color and if they are needed in large amounts or not. And then you've got your micronutrients. These are nutrients, of course, that are only needed in tiny amounts. As you can see, micro means something which is smaller, the opposite of macro, which can be something which is bigger. Okay, so you need to discuss these micronutrients, which are vitamins. For example, your vitamin A or vitamin C, and how does it actually function in your diet, like I said. Okay, and then still under unit 2, we also have to discuss the importance of adequate nutrition. Why is it important that our children, we are dealing with pre-primary school learners, why is adequate nutrition important in early childhood? Please discuss the importance of adequate nutrition for our young children who are in pre-primary school. Yes, that's what you are required to do in this question. It's a question with 8 marks. And then still under unit 2, we have a question on the dangers of fast food, what we also refer to as junk food. And then, of course, after you have discussed the dangers of junk food, as I've put it there, please describe what is meant by a balanced diet. What is a balanced diet? And that is also a question worth 8 marks. That is all that you are required to do in unit 2. And this question is worth 23 marks in total. All the questions together in question 2 are worth 23 marks. Let me just go through them again, just to see. Okay, your first question is going to be out of 7 marks, which is now the macronutrients and micronutrients and their functions in a diet, is out of 7 marks. The importance of adequate nutrition in early childhood will cost you 8 marks. And then the explanation of the dangers of fast food or junk food. And then at the same time, again, you are going to describe what is meant by a balanced diet. That is also 8 marks, giving us a total of 23 marks. And then we come on to question 3, which is, okay, your question 3 is taken from unit 4. So in this case, I've jumped unit 3. After Unit 2, please ignore Unit 3. You are going to go on to Unit 4. And Unit 4, as we see on our slide there, it's about self-concept issues as part of human development. Unit 4 is about self-concept issues as part of human development. So in this question 3, like I'm saying, it's going to come from Unit 4. The first question that you have to discuss here, you have to discuss the contrast between people with a good self-concept and those with a negative self-concept. What is a contrast? When you talk about contrast, it means that we are in a way we are comparing, but comparison, that is we are talking about the differences between these two things, or these two people. We have two people here. We've got people who are having a very good self-concept, and then we have those with a negative self-concept. And then when we contrast between these two people, or this kind of people, we are talking about what do the people that have got a good self-concept, what do they have that the people that are having a negative concept do not have, or what are their characteristics. Okay, for example, you can say a person who has a very good self-concept is likely to have a very high standard of personality adjustment compared to a person that has a very poor self-concept. So people with I'm just going to give an example again. People that have a very good self-concept usually have a very high standard of personality adjustment, while those that have a poor self-concept do not have a very high standard of personal adjustment. This is an example of how you are going to contrast those two types of people. It's worth 6 marks. So in this case, you have to use 3 contrasting components for you to get the whole 6 marks. And then still under question 3, which is from Unit 4, you are going to discuss how moral development is tied to self-concept. Moral development. What is moral development? Moral development in children refers to the development of a moral understanding of what is right and what is wrong, and the child's own set of moral values. When a child is able to know that this is right and this is wrong, that is what we mean by moral development. We can say a child is developed morally when they can tell that this is right and this is wrong, and they can set their own moral values. That is moral development. Okay, now how does moral development lead to self-concept? Piaget is one of the theorists that has discussed moral development in self-concept in learners. For example, according to Piaget, he said children are born amoral, meaning that they are not born with morals, but they develop the concept of moral as they develop their own self-concept, as they are developing who they are, as the environment in which they are growing, as their age as they are growing in age, and as they are becoming socially developed people, they also develop this self-concept, and this moral development as well grows with them. Okay, so and Piaget also believes that moral development is very tied up to self-concept. So the more you are growing and realizing who you are, developing your own self-concept, you also develop your own morals as a person. Okay, so we have to discuss this. So remember, we are pre-primary teachers in training, so we are concentrating on children. In this case, please go onto your study guide and read more on moral development in children and discuss it from the angle of young children. Yes, that is what we have in unit 4 for question 3. Now we move on to unit 5. Unit 5, it's about learning aspects and learning theories, and the questions that are coming from unit 5 will be under question 4. Question 4, you have to discuss the effects of motivation in learning. How does motivation affect learning? For someone who is motivated, how will they learn? Direct behavior toward particular goals. For example, if someone is motivated to learn, they can determine their own specific goals and how it affects the choices that they make. It can also lead to an increased effort and energy in wanting to learn and in the need to learn. It can also determine, motivation can also determine whether a learner will pursue a task with enthusiasm. Okay, there we go. It will determine whether a learner can really pursue a task and is really motivated to do that task. It can increase the initiation and the persistence of activities. For example, what do you mean by to initiate? When does a learner initiate something? When a learner is motivated to learn. If you motivate a child to learn, the next time you come to class, you do not have to ask them to do a task. They can actually initiate a task on their own. This is what we mean by initiation. Okay, it can increase that level of in which they initiate a task and they want to learn. And they can also be they can also be more persistent with activities. They don't easily just give up because they are not getting what they want to get. They can persist until they get the desired outcomes in a learning activity when they are motivated. Excuse me. So discussing motivation again. Under motivation again, we talk about motivated learners are more likely to pay attention and to try to understand the material. Learners that are motivated, of course, when they come to class, they are more interested in listening, and they are more encouraged in listening to the teacher, and they pay attention not only to the teachers, but also they pay attention to their fellow learners in class when they are interacting, and they tend to try to understand the material. It also leads to improved performance. At the end of the day, you will find that the performance of your learners has improved simply because they have been motivated well to learn. That is what we need to discuss there. This point, I think I've kind of spent more time on it. It is worth 10 marks. So please prepare well on what are the effects of motivation in learning. You will be required to explain this critically, to analyze this point, and for you to earn the entire 10 marks. And then under question 4 again, we have 4.2, which is about the extrinsic. No, in this case, I'm talking about the extrinsic, not intrinsic. It's extrinsic barriers to learning and how they can hinder learning. Okay, the extrinsic, we know those are the things that are the outsiders. So these are like communication levels, issues like these barriers like communication difficulties, emotional and behavioral difficulties, psychosocial difficulties. We've got the psychosocial difficulties. We've got the communication barrier difficulty. Like I said, they got the emotional and the behavioral difficulties. All these are the extrinsic barriers that can hinder learning. And of course, you have to explain how they do hinder learning, how they keep us from learning, how they keep learners from learning. In this case, hinder means that just to keep something away from something happening. Okay, for example, let me look at the emotional and behavioral difficulties. These can be issues that can cover a wide range of disorders, for example, conditions and behavioral patterns that may be more or less noticeable or disturbing. Like these are disorders or behavioral patterns that can keep someone from learning. Those are the issues that you have to discuss there. I'm not going to discuss everything. Everything is there in your study, guys. I'm just giving you guidance on the kind of things to concentrate on. And then we still have another question in question 4, which is the humanistic approach to learning. As you know, under unit 5, we are having learning theories. And the humanistic approach is one of the learning theories that we have in education. Okay, so discuss the beliefs of the humanistic approach. You have to discuss what are the beliefs that the humanistic approach theorists talk about. Okay, for example, we say one of their beliefs is that the present is the most significant aspect of someone. As a result of humanist emphasis that the here and the now is what is important, instead of examining the past. Unlike some theorists that concentrate on what has happened to the person in the past, or the attempt to predict what will happen to the person in the future, they actually the humanistic approach, they concentrate on what is happening now, here and now. That is one of their emphasis. This is just one of their beliefs, which I've just mentioned here. But of course, the humanistic approach have got many beliefs. Please study them, prepare well, and discuss all these beliefs that the humanistic approach is. Please take into consideration how many marks you will need to answer this question. which is required in this question. Each question has got marks allocated per question, so please look at the questions. And if for example I've allocated 8 marks, you can at least discuss 4 of these beliefs, and then each belief will be worth 2 marks. I'm not going to award 8 marks for one belief, no matter how long your essay is. But if it's just based on one belief, it will not be enough for you to score the entire 8 marks. As you can see, it says the beliefs of humanistic approach to learning. So you are required to actually go through to write as many of those beliefs as possible, which are there in your study guides. You are free to consult other books if possible, but your study guides are actually enough for you to prepare well for this exam. And then we have question 5, which is coming from unit 6, and question 5 is our last question in the question paper. Question 5, we will talk about unit 6. Our question 5 comes from unit 6. Unit 6 is the impact of poverty, health, and violence on development and learning. The first question, the impact of poverty on the health of children. Children that live in extreme poverty. How does the extreme poverty that they live in, how does it affect their health? Okay, so you have to discuss this. It's worth 8 marks. Give a thorough discussion of 8 marks, how poverty will affect the health of children. For example, extreme poverty can lead to low birth weight in a child that is born. A child can be born with a very low birth weight, sometimes because the person, the expectant mother is not having access to a balanced diet. It can lead to them to have inadequate prenatal care, and at the end of the day, this can lead to death in infancy. A child may die before they even reach the age of 1. Sometimes the child may be born prematurely before a full 9-month term, and like I said, sometimes it may lead to low birth weight. So all these are the impact that the poverty has on children. We have issues whereby the children, because they are living in extreme poverty, they do not have access to health facilities or health care. They may not go for regular health care programs. Maybe your normal immunization, they may not go through that, and at the end of the day, it will also affect or lead to them to have severe health problems. They might also be malnourished. That's the word I'm looking for. They might be malnourished. All those are examples of what extreme poverty can lead on the health of children in our own classrooms. Okay, it might also at the end of the day lead to poor physical and mental health, and these are the things that we should look out for as teachers of these children who are coming from extreme poverty situations. Okay, and then the last question for the exam, for your August exam, for your LDL, for the DJP and the DPP students, is the issue of domestic violence and its influence on female children. Okay, domestic violence, it affects anyone involved, whether you are the father who is committing the domestic violence, whether you are the mother who is at the receiving end, or whether you are the child, a female child or a male child in that home that is going through or is unfortunately having the issue of domestic violence happening. We are all affected by domestic violence in a situation or in a home where domestic violence happens. But in this specific question, I am concentrating on female children. So please, as you are discussing this question, look at what the question is asking you to answer. In this case, I am only interested on finding out what are the influence that domestic violence has on female children in a home. So please go through your study guides. It thoroughly explains on what is domestic violence on female and on male children. This is a question with 12 marks. Please do a thorough discussion. In your discussions, you can talk of issues like girls learn from their mothers that violence is to be expected and something that they have to put up with. For example, female children have to witness family members being abused, being attacked, and at the end of the day, in most cases, our female children have to be mothers to the younger siblings. They have to be the young mothers simply because their own mothers are not there due to the domestic violence that happens in a home. Okay, you can also discuss that girls may also become very aggressive under some situations when they've gone through a home where there's domestic violence happening. And sometimes these children, they may act out at times of helplessness or when they are in anger, and they may express to be hostile, and they can be biased as well. And sometimes when children have to deal with domestic violence and abuse, they often have a negative, it always, in most cases, it always leads to a negative impact on their own schoolwork. They tend to neglect their own schoolwork, and they tend not to perform well because of the domestic violence happening. Okay, I think there is a point missing in your guide there, which is under question 5, the difference between a poverty-stricken home and a more affluent home. It's with 10 marks. You need to you just need to differentiate between a poverty-stricken home and a more affluent home. What is a more affluent home and what is a poverty-stricken home? Okay, this is what you will need to discuss in this last question for this topic. For example, a more affluent home is a home that has got strong family ties to the surrounding social context. It has got contact with friends and relatives. It has got organized youth activities. They've got regular religious group attendance, for example. Whereas a home that is poverty-stricken, sometimes you live in dilapidated houses or schools. Sometimes you lack things like community centers where you can go and socialize and study together and play sports or any other game. These activities or centers are not available in poverty-stricken neighborhoods, for instance. That is all for this exam, for your August exam, and I wish you all the best. Please try to answer the questions as they are asked. Do not go out of topic as you are answering your questions. Pay attention to your spellings and try to be as neat as possible in your answering. It will make it easier for the person marking your script when your work is easy. And we know as teachers we require the same aspects from our learners also when we mark their schoolwork. My cell phone number is 081285144, and my email address is yuna.cario@gmail.com. You are free to contact me either by cell phone, by SMS, or you can send me an email. I will respond to your questions. And good luck with your August exams. Thank you.